Al-Qaeda, the rise and fall of a global nightmare. After more than a decade of relentless pursuit and over $450 billion spent, the United States finally brought down the most feared man of the century, Osama bin Laden. But to understand how one man could make the entire world tremble, we must turn back the pages of history, to the ruins of war, colonial deceit, and great power betrayal that sowed the seeds of an ideology destined to reshape the modern world. From desert sands to the borders of hatred. When World War I ended, the Ottoman Empire, once the heart of the Islamic world, collapsed. Western powers, hungry for control, carved up the Middle East with cold, straight lines. In 1916, the Sykes-Picot Agreement between Britain and France divided the region into spheres of influence, ignoring centuries of faith, culture, and heritage. A year later came the Balfour Declaration, where Britain endorsed the creation of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, a land already inhabited by millions of Arabs. That moment shattered Muslim trust in the West. They realized that those who had promised liberation were merely conquerors cloaked in civility. When fascism rose in Europe, hundreds of thousands of Jews fled to the Middle East. By 1948, the United Nations partitioned Palestine, granting most of the land to the newly declared State of Israel. The next day, Arab nations, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Lebanon, went to war. 8 months later, they were crushed. Israel emerged victorious, expanding its borders, while over 700,000 Arabs were expelled from their homes. Humiliation spread like wildfire across the Muslim world. And in that humiliation, the seeds of extremism began to grow. Ideas, the spark that ignited holy war. Amid this turmoil rose an Egyptian man named Sayyid Qutb. Once a writer and literary critic, he returned from America convinced that the West had lost its soul, a society that worshipped materialism and had forsaken God. He joined the Muslim Brotherhood, becoming its chief ideologue. While imprisoned in Egypt, he wrote works that would shape generations of radicals. To Qutb, the modern world was living in Jahiliyyah, a state of ignorance before Islam, a time when humanity lived outside divine law. The only solution, he declared, was Hakimiyyah, the absolute sovereignty of God. All human laws were false idols to be destroyed through violent revolution. In 1966, Qutb was executed, but his ideas lived on, carried by a young Egyptian doctor named Ayman al-Zawahiri. At just 15, Zawahiri had joined a secret movement seeking to overthrow Egypt's secular government and create an Islamic state. Imprisoned after the assassination of President Anwar Sadat, Zawahiri immersed himself in Qutb's writings, emerging even more radical. He came to believe that violence was the only path to restoring Islam's lost purity. Afghanistan, the crucible of holy warriors. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Across the Muslim world, it was seen as an open assault on Islam itself. Thousands of volunteers flooded in, calling themselves Mujahideen, the warriors of jihad. Among them was a young Saudi named Osama bin Laden. Born into a billionaire family, he had wealth, power, and privilege. But inside, a restless conviction that God had chosen him for a divine mission. At first, he funded logistics and infrastructure. But the deeper he went, the more he believed this was not just a war for Afghanistan. It was a war for the soul of Islam. In the borderlands of Pakistan, he met Ayman al-Zawahiri. One rich, one radical, together they formed a deadly partnership. From their alliance, a new organization was born, Al-Qaeda, meaning the base. Al-Qaeda, the network of global terror. In 1989, the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan. But instead of allowing the Mujahideen to rule, Saudi Arabia invited the United States to protect the Gulf. To bin Laden, it was a blasphemy, the presence of American troops on sacred soil. Banished from his homeland, bin Laden fled to Sudan, where he met Islamist leader Hassan al-Turabi. Under Turabi's protection, Al-Qaeda built training camps, forged alliances across Africa, and slowly evolved into a global terror network. In 1992, Al-Qaeda carried out its first bombing in Yemen. Then came the 1993 attack in Somalia, the Black Hawk Down tragedy. By 1996, expelled from Sudan, bin Laden returned to Afghanistan, where the Taliban had seized power. There, under their protection, Al-Qaeda was reborn stronger than ever. That same year, bin Laden declared jihad against the United States, calling on Muslims to strike Western interests anywhere on Earth. In 1998, U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were bombed, killing over 200 people. In 2000, the USS Coal Destroyer was attacked in Yemen, killing 17 American sailors. All of it mere preludes to the nightmare of September 11th. The day the world changed. Morning of September 11th, 2001. 4 civilian planes were hijacked. 2 slammed into the Twin Towers, 1 struck the Pentagon, and the last crashed in Pennsylvania after passengers fought back. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost. America was in shock, and the world entered a new age, an age of fear. The global manhunt. Weeks later, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom, invading Afghanistan and toppling the Taliban. Al-Qaeda's bases were destroyed, its fighters hunted, its finances frozen. Bin Laden and Zawahiri escaped through the mountains of Tora Bora into Pakistan. But their empire was collapsing. No bases, no funds, no sanctuary. In 2011, after 10 years of pursuit, U.S. Navy SEALs raided a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, killing Osama bin Laden. That moment marked the end of an era of terror. The fading shadow Zawahiri took command, but he lacked bin Laden's charisma and vision. Al-Qaeda splintered, its branches in Yemen, North Africa, and Somalia drifted apart, and new factions emerged. By 2014, the rise of the Islamic State, ISIS, overshadowed Al-Qaeda completely. Young radicals rallied under ISIS's black flag, leaving the base behind to fade into history. Once a vast empire of terror, Al-Qaeda had become a ghost of its former self. The legacy of darkness. Though weakened, Al-Qaeda remains an eternal symbol of an age scarred by extremism and hate. It reminds the world that when faith is weaponized, when religion is twisted for power, no nation and no people are safe. Al-Qaeda may be gone, but the fire it lit, the fire of hatred, fanaticism, and fear, still burns quietly in the heart of the world today. The story of Al-Qaeda is not just about terror. It's about how injustice and betrayal can turn belief into rage, and how ideologies built on hate always destroy themselves in the end. Let it remind us that peace begins where understanding replaces vengeance. Thank you for watching this video. If you found this story insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the hidden chapters of history. Your support helps us continue uncovering the stories that shaped our world. Stay curious, and see you in the next video.